This is Pat Boone, host of the Inner Strengths Foundry podcast. I believe we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, and I help husbands, fathers, and providers understand what that means for them so they are more valuable to their friends, family, and organizations. I accomplish this by working through organizations and individuals to build their inner strengths. I've held several positions in the public and private sectors and in leadership positions for the past 17 years. I've owned and operated my own business, and I am also a Christian. I love to learn and have focused my learning around science and psychology, the Bible, and gathering bits of wisdom from my almost quarter century of experience being a husband, father, and provider. I pull from all these areas during this podcast and in my life coaching practice. The Inner Strengths Foundry podcast serves two purposes. One, to help you build your inner strengths by providing knowledge, hope, and perspective. And two, to help me build my inner strengths so I can be even more effective to you. Hello, and welcome to the Inner Strengths Foundry podcast. I'm your host, Pat Boone, and today we're going to talk a little bit about my week and some lessons I learned about some events that have occurred and how I handled those events and what I think about those events now and how it's related to inner strengths and personal growth. My wife and I went out to breakfast yesterday morning. As we were waiting for the order, I asked my wife, what's the list of things that you wanted to get done today? What I was expecting and wanting was the list. And she would dive into, here's this item, and if we don't do that, I need to do something else, and went into a whole story of for each item that she had, and I was lost. After the first item, I was lost. Because what I had in my mind was, give me the list so I could solve the problem of organizing the drive around to the different places that we had to go to get that list completed. Because I know my wife likes to get her list of work done. And I'm just there. I love helping my wife and making sure she gets the things done that she wants to get done. So that was what I was trying to do. And so I kind of, to be honest, I tuned it out and thought she must have this all figured out. So we got our meal and we got talking a little bit more. And then she said, I think we're going to need to go this place first to get our groceries, and then we're going to need to go down here and pick this up and pick that up. And I said, well, you forgot about one item that we have to go to. And she's like, oh yeah, like that's going to screw up my plan here. And I started laughing, and she looked at me and she said, what's so funny? And I said, it's kind of funny. I said, I'm going to be honest with you. When you started giving me your list, what I was going to do with that list is plan out how we get to the various areas and the timing and so forth to get your list completed. When you started going into the whole explanation of why we were doing this and why we couldn't do that, and I said I tuned you out, and I said it was just kind of funny the difference between men and women, because later on in our conversation you actually started solving the problem, and I said that's what I was looking to do, was to solve the problem. And anyway, so we just had a laugh about that and just about the different personalities, and we are quite different. My wife and I are quite different. We got about half the list done, and we were driving to our next destination, and I asked her, I said, I got a question for you, hon. I said, what is more satisfying to you? I said, is the completion of your list more satisfying, or is it solving the problem of getting the list done? What's more satisfying to you? And the reason why I asked that, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, the reason why I asked that is because I had a similar issue at work this past week. And I wanted to understand how the priority of getting the list done or actually solving the problem to get the list done. And she said, well, it's kind of equal. At the end of the day, it's kind of equal. I like solving problems. And she said, sometimes I just can't do it, and so I had to get help. But and that's when I get stressed out, because now my list isn't getting done, and it's because I can't solve a problem. So she likes to solve problems and get the list done. So I thought, okay, that's really interesting, and it's helpful for me to help me deal with an issue that I had at work. What I took from that conversation is that, one, different personalities look at things differently. When you understand personalities better and understand that people approach things, men and women, husbands and wives, approach things differently. You can have a little bit more patience with each other and understand each other. And the other lesson from this is that it is so important to talk, to have these really not, I guess it wasn't really a deep conversation, but you got to be open and ask the questions and understand your spouse's preferences in these little items, because it'll help you be better together. The next story I want to share with you is as a father. So my oldest son has his Red Seal in carpentry, and my youngest son has been working with a mentor, actually, with heavy equipment and stone work, and just does some phenomenal work outside. But sometimes the projects that they work on require both of them, and they're able to work together. And my youngest is he and I talk a lot, and he'll give me a call and ask me to help him think through a particular equipment purchase or something that happened or whatever. And he texts me, or I texted him, and I said, how was your day, or how was your week? We hadn't talked for a week or so, and I said, how was your week? And he said, it was the absolute worst week I've ever had. Just felt like quitting, sort of thing. And that's just kind of paraphrasing. Normally I would eventually hear from him on that. I said, oh, that's too bad. I hope it's better. If you let me know if there's anything I can do to help. But no phone call, no nothing. And so I start to get a little nervous, because this is so out of his character. And because normally, like I said, we normally talk through things. And if what I detected from his text was this was something big, and he was quite upset about whatever was going on. This is so out of your character. And I said, are you sure you're okay? Because normally you want to talk to me and talk these things through. And I talked to my wife about it and kind of let her know what was going on. And she said, well, Pat, she said, the boys are 24 and 22. Like, they're not going to need their father as much anymore. And I thought, wow, that is something that I never really considered. But it's true. As our kids get older, they need us less and less. And actually, we looked after our grandson. So my youngest son, we came and picked him up, and we looked after him on Friday. And so when my son came to pick up his son, we had a good visit. And I said, can you please, explain to me what happened? Why was this such a terrible week? And he shared what happened, and just a perfect storm of things that happened throughout the week. And I said, I understand it completely. I said, and I was able to tell him, I said, what was bothering me was that it was so out of character for you that you weren't coming to talk to me, that I was getting a little worried that, something bigger might be up. And he was able to say, no, Dad. And I before he actually said that, I said, and I get it, dude. I said, I understand, and I have to accept too that you're going to need me less and less for these types of things. And he said it wasn't even that, Dad. He said I was just so focused on my problems. I didn't want to talk about them. I had to think my way through, and I understood that as well. I guess the point of the story is spend the time with your kids when you can, because the time does go so quickly, and you only have so much time to impart your wisdom, impart your morals and your ethics to your kids, and have a good relationship with them, and form that foundation so they're going to want to talk to you when they move out of the house. So the final story that I have for this week is as a provider. So I coach husbands, fathers, and providers. So I wanted to share some things that I had to go through this week from a provider perspective. So I work for a company full-time as a project manager, and had some issues that I had to work through. The first company I was with when I left university, I was working for a company, and there were some issues. I was working in a different province. I'm from Canada, and I was working in a different province, and so there's some issues around travel and working from home and so forth and so on. I got through them, but there was a lot of turmoil, I would say, in the relationship, and I was unhappy about some things, and I knew they were unhappy about having me working from home in a different province, Anyways, when I finally left that company after about 7 years, I would have been early to mid 30s at this point, and I vowed to myself that before going on to a new role or a new company, I would do everything in my power that I could think of to resolve whatever problem that I was dealing with on my job. And the issues that I was dealing with this week, I had a number of different conversations that I had to have to get to the bottom of the issue. And in preparation for these conversations, there's two main things that I learned. One study I found shared information about communicating in the workplace. And in any relationship, so something happens, something gets said, or an action occurs. We'll say to person A. So person B does or says something to person A. A perceives that, says, okay, I need to deal with this, whatever it is, I need to deal with this. And so they do what they think is right, whether that is going within themselves and not talking about it or trying, internalizing it. It may also be externalizing it, so coming back under attack, or, there's all sorts of different ways you can choose. But person B observes how you react to what was said and has a perspective or a perception of your reaction, how you are dealing with what has happened. And that was the part that I did not consider in working relationships. I was only considering my perspective on the situation. I didn't realize that the person to whom I'm relating to is also perceiving my behavior in relation to what happens. And then that behavior could either continue or stop depending on how they are perceiving your reaction and your actions based on what has been said or done. So what I realized about this is the only way to solve that problem is to actually have a conversation with that person. And so I did. I planned some conversations. I had those conversations, and there was a variety of reactions within those conversations on my side, on their side. There was clarity that was brought to the surface during the course of the conversation. But at the end of the day, what I took out of it was, first of all, I did what I could do to solve whatever problem I was dealing with. So I did what I could do. But in any relationship, it takes two. There's the other person that perceives the conversation, needs to think through the conversation, and then will have to react to what was being shared. And there could be a variety of reactions. And in my particular case, there was a number of conversations that I had to have. And so I'm actually looking forward to seeing how those conversations are perceived and what the results will be over the coming days. So for me, having those tough conversations, and it's easier for someone like me. I'm 50 years old. I've been in the workforce for 25 years. I've kind of maybe earned my stripes to a certain degree, and I'm just realizing that you just have to talk through this stuff in order to reduce the risk related to all these perceptions, which may or may not be correct. The only way around that is to actually share. These are my thoughts. These are how I perceive what happened. Here's why I did what I did, or here's why I said what I said. They have your truth, and then they can react to it however they want to react to it. Perception is part of the game. And if you're observing behavior that you think is not right, or there's something has changed, or you're not comfortable with how a certain relationship is, I would highly recommend just having a frank conversation and say, start out and say, look, I'm seeing, I feel there's a division here with us, and I'd like to try to resolve that division if we can, and then have that conversation. And one of the things that really helped me prepare for these conversations is understanding that there are different personality types. And I've talked about personality types in previous episodes and the benefit of knowing personality types. And there was one conversation that I had to have, and there was a specific personality that I knew we had different personalities, and I knew about each one of us, but it didn't really hit home until I did an AI search. and not search, an AI conversation, and I basically went to AI. I said, here's my personality, here's their personality, simulate a conversation between the two of us about issue X. And I could not believe what I read. And what I took out from that conversation is, even though I knew this part about the personality, it really came out in the conversation, because they would have been observing my behavior, my actions, and basically saying, I don't trust you. And it was 3 or 4 times where they said, I don't trust you because here's what I'm seeing. And it was based on my personality. And I thought, wow, I had no idea it was that important, or that's how I was perceived, or I could be perceived by that personality type. So that really helped me to plan for the conversation, and address that potential concern, if that was a concern in real life. And which that conversation I had with this individual was phenomenal. We had a really good conversation, and they in fact thanked me for reaching out and patching up the relationship. So there can definitely be some good things that occur from having these conversations, and there may be some negative things that happen too. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you can do to resolve the issues. And sometimes tough conversations are needed, and you just have to accept what happens afterwards. And the way I approached these conversations is, from an inner strength perspective, is faith. My faith served as a backdrop. One, in the conversation itself, I wanted them to see, I believe I'm a Christian, I wanted them to see Christ in the conversation. And so that was kind of a foundation during and preparing for these conversations. And then afterwards, I have to invoke my faith to say, whatever happens, happens. I did what I could to resolve the issue, and now it's up to this relationship to determine what happens next, basically. So if you're in a situation where you have to deal with something at work, prep for that conversation. And AI provides a lot of tools. Understand that there are different personality types, and there's a number of different profiling tools out there. Insights is one that I've used a fair bit. Predictive Index, Enneagram. I really like Enneagram. Myers-Briggs is another personality. So there's 4 right off the top of my head that I can think of. The DISC personality types. So that's 5. There's 5 different tools out there. But what they do is help you communicate better, on a number of different levels. And it allowed me, like I said, to use personality types from these different methodologies to simulate that conversation, and it was quite powerful. So if you're in a situation where you have to have a tough conversation, preparation is key, and going into that preparation with some knowledge about the different personality types in general could be crucial to your prep work. In the conversation, be respectful, and look for a positive outcome for the conversation. Keep your emotions at bay. And then after the conversation, you need to have faith that whatever happens after the conversation was meant to be. And again, from my perspective as a Christian, I know that Christ has my best interests in mind, and he wants the best for me. So whatever that ends up being, I will accept it. And yeah, maybe more pain, I don't know, but I have to accept it. And so that's how I have to look at this. As we come to a close on this episode, a recap. Understand, as a husband, understand that you and your wife may have totally different personalities, but talk through it. Talk through whatever those little problems are that you're having, so the little ones don't become big problems. As a father, understand that your kids will need you differently and likely need you less and less over time. So spend the time with them that you can spend with them when they want to have you around. Use that time wisely, but prepare for the time when you're going to need to spend your time doing other things, because they're not going to need you as much. And finally, as a provider, have those tough conversations. Be respectful. Plan and prepare for those conversations, and have faith that things are going to work out the way they need to work out. So that's the episode for this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more, or you have an important decision that you need to make and want an objective perspective, please reach out. You can connect through my website, www.coachpatboone.com, or on Facebook at innerstrengthfoundry.com. Again, this is Pat Boone. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week.